David Smith here with another Flipped Classroom math video. A few tips before we get started. Remember, you can always pause the video to make extra notes or write down questions for when we meet in class. Also, remember to pause the video when I provide an example. Work that problem, then start the video up again and see how well you did. You can also turn on the captions so you can see my words written below on the screen. You can also speed up or slow down the video if you wish. Remember to think hard, follow along, and bring your best brain to the next time we have class. Today's topic, vertex form. So now we're going to start transitioning more and more into graphing quadratic functions than just manipulating their equations like we've been doing to this point. So vertex form is a really handy way of expressing a quadratic equation so you can get all the information right from it just by looking at it so you can throw up a graph. Remember completing the square? We did that because that's the steps you need to take to go from a standard form quadratic to a vertex form quadratic. That's going to happen in a later video. Right now I just want to introduce you to vertex form. So, using our function notation, f of x equals a times x minus h in parentheses plus k. Now we're going to put numbers in for the a, the h, and the k, and that will show us a whole lot about this function and about the parabola that shows up on its graph. hk, those are the coordinates of the vertex. Okay? So that tells you where the vertex is. So let's take a look at one of these guys. Here's one written in vertex form. F of x equals x plus 5 squared plus 2. Notice how there's no number out here for the a. That means there's a 1 there, okay? And that means that the shape of this parabola is identical to that really simple one you watched for the video you watched just a little while ago, y equals x squared. This one is identical to that parabola except that the vertex has been shifted. That's all. Otherwise, it's the same parabola. Okay, so the vertex here, I'm just going to do V for vertex. Notice how there's a minus here and it's not there. So that minus gets put on the number that's already in there. So the vertex is minus 5, 2. Okay? This is a thing that students struggle with. The easiest way to do this is just remember, whatever sign you see here inside the parentheses, the vertex has the opposite. The x-coordinate of the vertex has the opposite. So let's step over to our graph and see what we can do. Notice how 5 and positive 2, so I'm going to scale my axes like this. Okay? You don't need to laboriously take a long time putting all the little tick marks all along your graph. I see students do this all the time, and it just takes up your time. And on a test, you want as much time as possible for the thinking part, not for the tedious marking up of an axis. Okay, so now I've scaled my axes. Where's 5, negative 5, 2? It's negative 5 up 2. It's right about there. Now remember the y equals x squared graph from that last video. To get your next points, the next two, you go over 1 and up 1. So it's going to be over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1. Now, that's enough to sketch my parabola. My sketch might not be super accurate, but it is going to capture exactly what this parabola looks like. So let's do that. Bam! There's the graph of f of x equals x plus 5 plus 2. Now, somebody might be asking me, how did I know that this parabola opens upward instead of downward? Because we have downward opening parabolas. The reason I know is that this number out here, which is a, which is 1, remember it's a 1, is positive. So if a is positive, it opens up. Okay? And then to review a little bit more of what we talked about with our parabolas, the vertex is a turning point. And what we mean by turning point, that's where this function changes from being a decreasing function, it's going down, to an increasing function at the turning point. And it also represents a minimum. This is as low as this goes, okay? All right. Let's take a look at one more. Okay, f of x equals x minus 3 squared minus 1. So my vertex in this one, remember, change the sign of that, it's 3, negative 1. Okay? So now let's graph that one. Now this is starting to go pretty quick. Remember the table of values we did in that last video? You can do that, but you want to work quickly, right? You don't want to use that time to tediously make a table of values to make your graph. We're going to sketch our graphs using this technique. It goes much quicker. So the vertex is minus 3, 1. I'm sorry, 3, negative 1. I'm going to go over 3 and down 1. So there's my vertex. And now I know, just like with this graph, the first 2 points are over 1, up 1. So I'm going to get right about there. Draw my graph. Okay. Same shape, opens up. We just moved the vertex from negative 5, 2 to 3, negative 1. So I think you're starting to get the hang of this. Okay, now I want to try playing around with this a term. Notice how this function, f of x equals 2 times x plus 1 squared plus 2. So let's take a look at our vertex first. Our vertex is going to be, change the sign of the x-coordinate, minus 1, 2. Let's get that on our graph. I'm going to scale my axes. Let's do it by 5s. Minus 1, 2. Minus 1's about there, 2's about there. Okay, so now we have something that we need to think about before we just draw the graph. Because this 2 is going to mean that the next 2 points aren't over 1, up 1. It's going to be a little different. So let's think about what happens. We're going to put our x number in, we're going to square it, then we're going to multiply it by 2. So instead of over 1, up 1, it's going to be up 2. So the next 2 points are going to be over 1, up 2, over 1, up 2. So this parabola still opens upward, has a vertex that's shifted over to here, but now it's kind of skinnier. So when this number is bigger than 1, it's going to take that parabola and kind of skinny it up a little bit. Okay? I want to take a look at one that's really closely related to that one. Okay? This parabola is almost identical to that one, except for we made our a 1/2. Okay? So my vertex is the same. Okay, just like that, negative 1, 2. So I don't need to make a new point, it's right there. But notice how 1/2, so instead of going over 1, up 1, it's going to go over 1, up 1/2. It's going to go up half as much. So we're going to have to go over 2 to get the full up 1. So over, let's see, we're minus, it's going to be something like that. So notice how, when I have a fraction here, it makes the parabola open wider. Okay? So a does a lot of things. Let's take a look at one more of those things. Okay, so now I changed my a. This parabola, this function, is almost identical to this one with one exception. It's got a negative 2 out here, okay? So the vertex is still going to be minus 1, 2. So we have that same point. So this will be the third parabola on this graph that has the same vertex. And since it's a 2 there, it's going to be the same shape as this one. It's going to be a narrower parabola. However, it's negative. So what that does is it just makes the parabola open downward. So my points go down. This is over 1, down 2. And there's my parabola. So for some of the homework problems that you might get, you're going to be asked to graph a bunch of different parabolas on the same graph. So you want to do that. That'll help you see the relationship between what A does, how it changes the shape, and how it opens and how it makes the parabola open up or down. and you'll put them all on one graph so you can compare. One last point to make here. When this is negative and the parabola opens down, the vertex, it's still a turning point, but now it's the turning point from when the function goes from increasing to decreasing, okay? And instead of representing a minimum, it represents a maximum. So this function, this one here, minus 2 times x plus 1 squared plus 2, this function has a maximum at this point, never gets higher. If you still have questions, write them down now and bring them to our next class. You can also watch the video again and perfect your notes. Finally, if you enjoyed watching my video, please click the like button down below. And if you'd like to help me grow my YouTube channel, please click subscribe.